when your case, you want her out of your life for good.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Fernari, though you admit to sleeping with 2 other men.
Well, Your Honor, there was really never no relationship. I met her over Facebook through my sister, and after that, I had unprotected sex with her, and I ended up going away probably 3 to 4 days later. Now, 6 months down the road, I get a letter from my sister stating that Ms. Fernari's pregnant, and there's no answer, and then I get pictures in the mail saying, hey, this is your kid.
That was the extent of the relationship.
Yes, Your Honor.
So you had sex just one time?
When the courtroom doors open and the truth walks in with the weight of a DNA test, every heartbeat becomes evidence, every memory becomes testimony, and every relationship stands on the edge of being rebuilt or completely destroyed. In Judge Lauren Lake's courtroom, the air is always thick with unspoken fears, unanswered questions, and the heavy possibility that a single piece of evidence may rewrite the entire story of someone's life. The courtroom is not just a legal stage, it is a personal crossroads where truth changes everything. The people who walk through those doors, often burdened, anxious, defensive, or hopeful, arrive because the truth has been delayed, avoided, or suppressed for far too long. And today is one of those days where the DNA test becomes the central key to unlocking reality. The individuals present in this matter are not here to rehearse a dramatic script. They are here to confront something deeply human: connection, responsibility, betrayal, pain, and the fragile thread between love and trust. Each person carries their own version of the story, their own recollection of nights, decisions, arguments, or disappearances. But the defining question lingers: what is the truth? The man standing before the bench insists that he has been dragged into something he should not be part of. He claims that the child in question cannot be his. He believes the timeline does not match. The circumstances are suspicious, and the accusations have been used as emotional leverage against him. His words reflect frustration, exhaustion, and the emotional toll of being blamed. He believes that people regret taking DNA tests only when they already suspect the truth may expose their mistakes. But in his situation, he claims he is simply here to clear his name. On the opposite side stands the mother. Her posture carries both exhaustion and defiance. She insists that despite complications, misunderstandings, and past conflicts, there is no doubt in her heart. She believes the child belongs to him biologically and emotionally. To her, this is not about reopening an old chapter of romantic involvement. She sees this moment as a necessary step in securing the child's identity, stability, and rightful connection. She wants the world to know that her intention is not revenge, it is recognition. Judge Lauren Lake watches them, not with judgment, but with measured empathy and professional clarity. She has seen this dynamic many times before. The weight of these situations is not just legal, it is deeply psychological. On the bench, she represents the relationship between law and justice, two concepts that are close but never identical. The law focuses on procedures, admissibility, and verifiable facts. Justice concerns human dignity, responsibility, fairness, and emotional impact. And within this courtroom, she must balance both. This is a moment where the game-changing attorney podcast discussions about courtroom strategies feel remarkably real. Real families, real futures, real consequences. The emotional stakes are not hypothetical or academic. They are lived, felt, and carried long after the court session ends. While family courts are often tied to divorce case evidence, custody debates, or disagreements over finances, this particular matter threads itself through deeper emotional channels: identity, belonging, and accountability. When children are involved, the courtroom does not simply resolve disputes, it reshapes lives. Judge Lauren Lake understands that every decision she makes echoes throughout the child's future, the parents' futures, and the emotional stability of the extended family. Inside this courtroom, silence is not acceptance, silence is processing. The father figure present today repeats his stance that he believes he is not biologically connected to the child. He recounts rumors, inconsistencies, and the mental strain caused by accusations. He mentions that life circumstances, past relationships and the wounds caused by mutual distrust have made communication nearly impossible. He feels that being forced into parenthood without clarity is deeply unfair. The mother acknowledges mistakes too. She acknowledges past arguments, misunderstandings, and emotional decisions that might have clouded previous attempts to establish truth. Yet she insists she never lied about the conception. She expresses that her priority is the child, a child who deserves to know their biological identity, their origins, their story, a truth that should not be denied because adults were once hurt by one another. Throughout the proceeding, Judge Lauren Lake reminds both parties that adverse inference in Evidence Act principles do not apply emotionally. A lack of communication or cooperation in the past cannot rewrite biological reality. Only the DNA test can. The test is the ultimate equalizer. It does not care about arguments, accusations, rumors, or history. It only reveals the truth. The emotional climate echoes the raw honesty heard in Celebrate Recovery testimonies, where people admit their brokenness and attempt to rise beyond it. It also mirrors the tone found in the Divorce Course podcast, where the emotional residue of relationships continues to shape decision-making long after separation. The themes here are universal. Trust is fragile, relationships can fracture, and truth has a way of resurfacing, no matter how deeply it is buried. Judge Lake asks questions, not merely for clarification, but to draw out deeper layers of intent, responsibility, and awareness. She carefully sorts emotional narrative from factual timeline. She listens not only to what is said, but to how it is said. The courtroom becomes a psychological landscape where sincerity matters just as much as logic. At one point, the father explains that he had heard stories, rumors, and confessions from others involved in the situation. He felt betrayed, manipulated, and backed into a corner. He believed the situation had been orchestrated to keep him emotionally connected to someone he had already separated from. He believed the paternity claim was less about truth and more about emotional leverage. The mother counters that this assumption is both unfair and incorrect. She emphasizes that the child deserves access to their biological father, regardless of how the adult relationship ended. She insists that adoption stories and circumstances where children grow up without knowing their roots often leave lasting emotional scars. She does not want that fate for her child. She is not here to trap anyone. She is here to resolve uncertainty once and for all. The courtroom atmosphere becomes quiet. Fear, guilt, resentment, and hope collide silently, visible in facial expressions and trembling hands instead of words. The concept of justice in jurisprudence becomes clear in this moment. Justice is not simply punishment or reward, but acknowledgement of truth. Judge Lauren Lake reminds everyone that these moments are not about winning or losing. They are about clarity. They are about establishing a foundation of truth so that the next steps in life can be taken with certainty instead of confusion. Whether the truth leads to co-parenting, child support, emotional repair, or complete separation, it must be faced. Because once the truth is known, every other decision gains direction. The courtroom waits for the DNA results. The room becomes still. Everyone understands that when the envelope is opened, the truth changes everything. The courtroom remains quiet, yet the silence is not empty. It is full of everything that has not been said, of every moment both parties replayed in their minds throughout sleepless nights, of every unanswered question that has led them here. Judge Lauren Lake knows this silence well. It is the silence that arrives right before truth reveals itself, a silence that lasts only seconds, yet carries the weight of years. This moment mirrors countless DNA test cheating stories that play out across relationships around the world. Stories where doubt begins as a whisper and slowly grows until it becomes an undeniable force. The uncertainty does not simply affect the adults, it affects the child who stands in the center of emotional storms they did not create. This is why Judge Lake emphasizes again and again that her courtroom is not a battlefield for ex-lovers. It is a sanctuary for truth and protection of the child's future. In many ways, this case reflects discussions often heard in the Game-Changing Attorney podcast, where legal professionals explain how the emotional layers of family law cases are just as significant as the legal ones. Family law is never just about statutes. It is about humanity in its most vulnerable form. Here, justice is not abstract. It directly affects where a child sleeps, who they know themselves to be, and whether they grow up with confusion or clarity. But the mother and father are not the only ones affected. There are extended families, friends, and future partners. Sometimes there are grandparents who silently grieve the possibility of being kept away from a grandchild. Sometimes there are siblings who grow up unaware that they share blood with someone outside their household. The truth in these situations is not just personal. It is generational. Judge Lake addresses both parties with the same tone she has used in countless full episodes of her courtroom, firm but compassionate, direct but not unkind. She reminds them that the DNA test does not choose sides. It does not care who argued louder. It does not consider who cried more, who left, who stayed, who blamed, who forgave. It simply presents reality, and reality must be faced. The father expresses that if the child is his, he will step up. Yet he also admits that fear has been gripping him since the beginning of this situation. Not fear of responsibility, but fear of being emotionally manipulated or recaptured into a relationship that once caused deep hurt. He has already been through breakups that left him shattered. He has fought through hardship and worked to build something stable in his life. He believes that being forced back into an emotional entanglement could tear down the progress he has made. The mother, on the other hand, struggles to separate her past feelings from her present intentions. She acknowledges that once there was love, or at least a force she believed was love. She acknowledges that there were times she wanted the family to be whole, yet now her focus has shifted. She insists this is no longer about romance, nostalgia, or reconciliation. She is simply trying to give her child what every child deserves: clarity and stability. She does not want the child to grow up asking why their father never acknowledged them. She does not want her child to look into the mirror with questions instead of answers. Judge Lauren Lake nods, because the essence of this courtroom is identity. Identity shapes self-worth. Identity shapes belonging. Identity shapes the ability to love others and to trust. In some ways, this case reflects the challenges seen in adoption stories, where children often search for their biological origins as part of understanding themselves. Even when raised in loving environments, those who do not know where they came from often describe feeling like a puzzle with missing pieces. The mother is determined to prevent that sense of fragmentation. The father acknowledges that he understands the significance of identity. He simply never wanted to be forced into a role that may not belong to him. He did not want to form bonds, only to learn he was never meant to be there. The fear of attaching to a child that is not biologically his is not coldness. It is self-protection. He wants truth before commitment because truth provides emotional safety. Judge Lake explains that this is precisely why the evidence stage in a divorce case, custody case, or paternity case is so crucial. Evidence reveals what emotions cannot resolve. Where trust has eroded, evidence restores clarity. Where memory is debated, evidence stands independent. And in this case, the DNA results are the clearest form of evidence available. The discussion shifts briefly to Supreme Court child support precedents, where the core guiding principle is always the welfare of the child. The law does not require love to be present between adults in order for responsibility to exist. The law does not require a romantic history to justify involvement. If the DNA establishes biological paternity, the law places responsibility where nature placed life. Judge Lake emphasizes that child support is not a punishment. It is a necessary structure that ensures the child does not suffer because of adult conflicts. It is also not the end of the emotional journey. It is only the beginning of co-parenting. Co-parenting is not easy. It requires maturity, communication, boundaries, and emotional discipline. It requires letting go of old wounds so that new wounds are not created in the child. Judge Lake turns her attention to both parties and calmly explains that the relationship between law and justice is delicate. The law tells them what must happen next. Justice requires them to handle it with grace. The mother listens with silent tears forming. The father looks downward, the tension visible in his shoulders. The weight in the room is not anger. It is anticipation. It is a silent countdown to truth. This case resembles many celebrate recovery testimonies where individuals confront not only their mistakes, but the emotional scars of the past. Healing never begins with denial. Healing begins with truth, and truth is only moments away. Judge Lake prepares to have the results brought forward. The room holds its breath. The child, though not present in the courtroom today, is present in every decision, every sentence, every heartbeat. This child represents not only a responsibility, but a legacy. Whether the father believes he was misled or manipulated no longer matters once the results are revealed. What matters is what he chooses to do after knowing, because knowing changes everything. The mother's hands tighten slightly, her body still as though holding herself together. She has relived this day in her mind over and over. She has imagined relief, heartbreak, confrontation, and closure. But what she seeks more than anything is certainty. The father exhales slowly. His jaw clenches. He hopes that whatever truth comes, it frees him from confusion. If he is not the father, he wants closure. If he is the father, he wants direction. Judge Lake states gently, yet firmly, that the truth does not create perfect solutions. The truth does not erase pain. The truth does not rewrite history, but the truth allows the future to begin. She signals for the envelope. The courtroom remains silent. The truth is here, and once it is spoken, the path forward becomes unavoidable. Judge Lauren Lake opens the envelope slowly, not for dramatic effect, but because she understands the gravity of the moment. In her courtroom, these results are more than just numbers on a page. They represent identity, responsibility, emotional closure, and the beginning of either healing or heartbreak. The truth is not always gentle, but it is always necessary. As she reads the results, the energy in the room shifts. Even before she speaks, both mother and father feel the weight of inevitability. No matter what comes next, the uncertainty that has shaped their lives until this point is finally ending, and then the truth is spoken. The DNA results confirm that the man is the biological father. The words do not echo loudly in the room, but they echo deeply in the hearts of everyone present. The mother closes her eyes for a brief moment, feeling a mixture of relief and sorrow. Relief, because the truth has been acknowledged. Sorrow, because the path ahead will not be easy. The father lowers his head. He does not deny the result. He does not argue. He does not protest. He simply absorbs the reality that now exists. This is where the emotional work truly begins. Judge Lake explains that biological paternity is not the same as emotional fatherhood. Biology creates connection. Commitment creates family. If he chooses to step forward and embrace his role, he has the opportunity to become a meaningful figure in the child's life. If he chooses to withdraw emotionally, the child will feel the absence long before they have the language to explain it. The mother understands that although this result confirms what she has always believed, it does not erase the past. It does not undo the misunderstandings, the mistrust, or the emotional fractures. This moment is not a victory. It is a turning point. She must now prepare to co-parent with someone she has shared conflict with. She must learn to separate her personal history from the child's future. The father feels a weight settle on him, but it is not the kind of weight that breaks a person. It is the kind that reshapes them. He now must decide not whether he is connected to the child, but how he will honor that connection. The truth offers him two paths, one grounded in responsibility, or one that continues the cycle of emotional avoidance. Judge Lake reminds him gently that celebrate recovery testimonies often begin at moments exactly like this, where honesty becomes the foundation for growth. The courtroom now focuses on the steps forward. Judge Lake outlines the expectations of co-parenting, communication that prioritizes the child, boundaries that prevent emotional harm, and structures such as child support that ensure stability. She emphasizes again that child support is not about punishing one parent or rewarding another. It is about making sure the child's needs are met, regardless of the adult's personal relationship. She also explains that co-parenting does not require friendship. but it does require respect. Respect for the child, respect for time, respect for emotional development. This respect must come from both parents, regardless of the past. The father expresses, with quiet sincerity, that his fear was not the child. His fear was being emotionally entangled again with the mother in a way that would reopen wounds. Judge Lake acknowledges this. She explains that co-parenting is possible even when two people are not emotionally connected. Clear boundaries, neutral communication, and consistent responsibility can create a stable arrangement. The mother listens and acknowledges that she must also make changes. She cannot allow past emotions to interfere with the father-child relationship. She cannot use the child as a bridge to repair a relationship that has already ended. She must separate her personal healing from the child's identity needs. Her role now is not to prove anything. Her role is to support the child's connection to their father in a healthy and balanced way. This realization shifts the emotional tone in the room. The tension begins to release, not because everything is resolved, but because the path forward finally has shape. The unknown has been replaced with direction. Judge Lake explains that this moment reflects the concept of justice in jurisprudence. Justice is not simply the verdict. Justice is the creation of a balanced framework that allows all parties to move forward with dignity. Justice is truth paired with responsibility. Families do not heal instantly. Trust is not rebuilt in a day, but truth is the foundation upon which healing can begin. Judge Lake closes by reminding both parents that one of the most powerful gifts they can give their child is emotional safety. Not perfection, not constant agreement, just safety. The child must grow up knowing they were wanted, protected, and valued by both parents. The father, now processing his new reality, considers what his presence will mean, not just financially, but emotionally. He understands that a child is shaped by the reliability of the adults around them. He knows he has a chance to break patterns that may exist in his own upbringing. He has a chance to give this child something he may or may not have received himself. Steady love. The mother feels the weight of relief settle into her body. She no longer has to live in the tension of uncertainty. She no longer has to defend her truth to others. She no longer has to carry the burden alone. But relief is accompanied by responsibility. She must now learn to share parenthood with someone she once struggled with. This requires maturity, patience, and self-awareness. The courtroom session concludes, but the emotional journey does not. The parents will step outside the building and return to their lives, forever changed by this moment. The truth has reshaped the path ahead. There will be challenges. There will be disagreements. There will be days where communication feels strained, but there will also be growth. There will be milestones, celebrations, and shared concerns. There will be moments where the child laughs, learns, speaks, and becomes a person. And in those moments, the presence of both parents will matter more than the past ever did. This case becomes another testament to the enduring truth echoed across the Divorce Course podcast, the game-changing attorney podcast, parenting support groups, and personal recovery journeys. Truth does not heal instantly, but truth allows healing to begin. In the end, the lesson that lingers is simple, yet profound. Truth changes everything. Not just the outcome of a court case, not just the signatures on legal documents, not just the emotional narratives adults carry. Truth changes the life of the child, and that is what matters most.